Hi, I'm Tom Podolsky. I'm a professional engineer in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, but I'm here before you today because I am the Vice President of Citizens for Sustainable Development, CFSD for short, um, which is an organization which successfully um, defeated a 6 million square foot warehouse development or proposal in White Township, New Jersey. Unheard of success story, um, which is our second slide. I'm not here to explain what we did, but rather how we did it, because that in itself is a story to be told and also something to be shared with other groups. As far as our path toward success, and we'll go over most of these in the following slides, need to identify a threat, organize internally, seek organized partners, employ publicity gimmicks, conduct public outreach, attend meetings, and most importantly, or all importantly, keep the issue current with the public.
Tom, before you go, this is, and we talked about them. So we'll just, Peter and I will just add in, because the Delaware Riverkeeper Network partnered with CFSD, and there were some other organizations involved along the way, and Tom will share with those organizations. So just to build on, if you could go back, the handout I passed out is, you know, when we were talking about getting ready for this presentation, we were saying a lot of this stuff seems so um, common commonsensical that. But then when new groups of residents would call up and say there's another warehouse being proposed, and they're asking questions about getting organized, and we're answering the exact same questions, because it's not all how you get your neighbors together, how you identify the Tom Podolskys in your community that can come in and look at a 72-page site plan, you know, and look at it, where I or Peter or most of us maybe open it up and saying, I'm not going to fight this. This is just way too complex. I don't know what I'm talking about. But Tom and the group found Tom, a PE, who could come in and look at that. And one of the topics that we'll be talking about in here, and there's many of them from my experiences, from what we did at CFSD, and these are just other hints on how do you prepare, not just for a warehouse, but a data center or an artificial, we're fighting 12 artificial turf fields in South Philly where they want to level a meadow and put in 12 artificial athletic fields. How do you organize the community around that? How do you go into your township planning board and your council board meetings with discussion points, looking organized, doing some background research so you're coming in informed? And that's what I hope you'll take out of this handout. So just from that first, you know, the one thing that we emphasized while we were doing this, and one of our leaders was Julia Summers from the New Jersey Highlands Coalition. She would just say, delay, delay, delay. You know, anything you can do to delay that project. And we do the exact same thing with the Delaware Riverkeeper. If you can delay it, you're pushing it, you're making it more expensive, you're making that developer think this is not really worth all this time and energy. And as an organizer, probably many people in this room will be the first person that picks up the phone and says, I got to get some people together because I just read about this in the public notices. When you call your group of your friends who are concerned about that too, many of them will come to the table and they'll have all these ideas, and they'll be looking at you to write down the notes, for you to come up with all the assignments and then do them yourself. And then we'll walk away and we'll come back next month when you should have already gotten those done in there. So along with, and this is my last point, along with delay, is to delegate. That's one of the things that's uncomfortable for people to do. A lot of times, you know, you're sitting there with your neighbors and no one's saying, you know what, I'll do that. You know, somebody has to call DEP, and find out if a wetland delineation was done. Somebody needs to file an OPRA request or a right to know request. I'll do that. Not everybody's going to do that. Everybody that's sitting around your kitchen table should be walking away with an assignment. If they don't volunteer, they should be assigned, because everyone should walk away with something to do, to report back on, so you're spreading it out, because if one person does it in just a couple of months, they can get totally burnt out.
You're going right through my slide presentation.
No, I'm not. Go ahead.
I already skipped a couple of slides because you're at a point. You're at a point about organizing internally. Beside identifying the project and that it has threats to the community, you need to publicize the fact that this project is being proposed before your planning board, your planning commission, your board of supervisors, whatever. So you got to catch the project early. In this case, this was a concept plan that was presented by the developer for 6 million square feet. Again, just shoot from the hip. We're here to bounce this off you to see what you think. Well, the town gasped at it, and we happened to have a citizen at that meeting who recognized the red flag, and she went and publicized the threat in a local Facebook page. And at that point, we didn't have our Facebook page, we didn't have our website, but most municipalities do have websites that you could hop on, or Facebook pages that you could hop on and say, listen, do you know that somebody's proposing a 6 million square foot warehouse right down the road? So with that, we attracted what I call the core people. And those are the people depicted in this slide. We ultimately wound up with something like close to 2,000 followers, 250 people at meetings and whatnot. But the people that you see before you in this slide are the core workers. And you'll find that with any organization. You can have thousands of people, like Fred was saying, you got only a handful of them that do all of the work. And these people need to be passionate about the project, be passionate at vocalizing their concerns, but they don't all have to be PEs like myself. We had a diverse group of secretaries, of teachers, of chiropractors, and each of them contributed in their own way. I have on this slide establishing an executive committee. I am and have been the vice president for 5 years. But our organization, and probably yours as well, didn't have to be that formal, because we knew that we were working with this core group that all shared the same values. And by the time that we would have our internal meeting on a weekly basis, if somebody said, I'll do this, who am I to say no? Go ahead and do it, because I know that they are going to say the right thing.
And it was that core group that put together the talking points for the big meetings where the 250 people showed up. And I think this is common with a lot of organizations like this, is the core group will show up and they'll have the talking points on sheets of paper, and they'll walk around, or they'll call people the day before and ask, hey, can you ask these 3 questions? Can you look at this email I just sent you and just ask these 3 questions? So the 50 questions that Tom comes up with are distributed among those 250 people, and it makes it so, because you walk in, a lot of times a planning board meeting will only allow you 3 minutes to give your presentation, so you can ask 2 or 3 questions. But if you have another person coming up, and that just distributes it, plus they're hearing the local officials who are making the decision are going to be hearing from 47 people that night. Now they see this community is really, it's not just Tom Podolsky here with 250 questions or 50 questions, but it's 47 people coming in with question after question after question, and that just helps build your case locally.
Okay. Become the motivational speaker. Our 10 people essentially scoured the neighborhoods, and once again, they didn't need any coaching. They knew what the problems with that particular development were, but it was up to them to convince others that this was a problem. Okay, and that's where the motivational speaker comes in. We rarely encountered anyone who, after they learned about our dilemma, said, "No, we're not interested." They're all interested if you frame it the right way.
And one of the things that we just wanted to share here, and Peter will demonstrate this in a little while, but a lot of people aren't natural public speakers. And again, this is, as a leader, as probably the person leading your group, it's okay to come in with your statement written down on a piece of paper and just read it in a public forum like that. A lot of people can get up there and just talk naturally and make quick adjustments based on what other people have said. But it's important for everyone to share. The more people that can share, even if they get up to the podium and said, I heard what Mr. Podolsky had said, I agree with him 100%, and then they sit down or they read, something prepared from their own hand. It's important, and that's okay. And again, as the leader of that group, you just want to make sure people are comfortable. So when they're getting ready, they're not like worried about showing up and not saying the right thing. It's okay.
Okay. Among the things that we next did was to connect with organized partners, among them being the Delaware Riverkeeper Network in New Jersey, the New Jersey Highlands Coalition. The Delaware Riverkeeper Network provided us with an invaluable resource, and that was a share of legal expenses. We entered into essentially a handshake agreement with them for a 50% share, if you will, of the legal expenses, and that, along with another organization that they sent us to for technical help, cost us, and I'm not trying to jab at anybody here, but to understand where you're going, we were into probably about $60,000 to $70,000 in fighting this. Now, we're a small organization, we're a volunteer organization. That is monumental to be able to raise that kind of money. And now we get back to our core people again, because these are the people who undertook various things. Somebody had gone to Africa with his wife, and he put on a show about what he saw in Africa. Of course, we charged a fee for that, but be it a wine and dine type of dinner and whatnot, these were the people that organized it. But the Delaware Riverkeeper Network was extremely important with respect to giving us financial report and support and technical support. I know it's not, the Highlands Coalition is not Pennsylvania bound, but I'm leaving them up there because essentially they provided, if you will, moral support and also technical support. We needed a projector, they had it. If we needed somebody to fly a drone over this 600-acre parcel, they provided that because they had a network of individuals and organizations that could do this.
And from over in this neck of the woods, I mean, we're still in the Delaware River watershed, which is let's admit it, that's the most important watershed that we could all imagine. But if you were further west of us, I mean, there's a Susquehanna river keeper, there's a Three Rivers water keeper organization, Pennsylvania Sierra Club, and many others like that, that if you find yourself in this kind of battle, like ask these organizations for help. They may not be able to come in with the checkbook and staffing and stuff like that, but they can be there to help this kind of with providing additional support, technical support, and how to get things done. So there's all those resources out there, like the Highlands and Riverkeeper.
Do want to mention, because you just reminded me, this project, White Township's 6 million square foot project, must have been 70, 80 miles for you to come up.
Yes.
And Fred was there. Fred was there for 90% of the presentations and hearings on this project. And this was, you oftentimes toted along our attorney, being that we were paying for 50% of it. But amazing support from the Delaware Riverkeeper Network. Next slide is publicity tools. And, Fred mentioned about common sense things. This is old-fashioned. Peter's going to talk about computer-oriented venues to get word out. But somehow you got to attract attention. And ultimately, by the time we were done, we had procured about 600 no warehouse signs strategically located along the main drags. And the politicians couldn't ignore these things. I mean, they were everywhere. All right. But the one that I take pride in is the next one, the signature orange T-shirt. This came out of, we were in April of 2019, probably in December of 2018, January 2019, there were demonstrations and riots in Paris called the Yellow Jacket Riot. And these people were protesting escalating costs and gas prices and layoffs and whatnot. And I looked at the television coverage on that, and all of these people dancing around the streets in yellow jackets, and that's what they became noted for. This was the Yellow Jacket movement, okay? Well, how about an orange T-shirt movement? So for as little as like $3 or $4 a T-shirt, we disseminated a whole host of these things. And the value to this and the value to the signs was that it galvanized the public. You wore a T-shirt, you were one of us. We didn't have membership per se in our organization, but you wore that T-shirt, you were one of us. Okay. The same thing with the signs. Initially, we were selling them for a nominal fee of like $10 a pop and making a little bit of money. But if you planted one of these and spent $10 on it, you had skin in the game. You wanted to be part of this organization. And it's these people that would show up at the various meetings, not necessarily to be part of the core, but they showed up at the meetings.
And there were a lot, and in this 6 million square foot warehouse was, it went on for months and months with just the consultants, experts standing up and giving, and no public comment. So you'd have 100 people in the audience. The planning board had no idea they were for you, or they were for the warehouse or against. They were there because they had an application for an addition on their house or something like this. But when they came in month after month after month with orange T-shirts, everybody started there was no question, because there were a lot of members of the planning board that wanted the warehouse. They wanted it to come through. It was jobs, it was ratables, it was like progress in the community. But when they looked out and they could see a sea of their constituents, it was hard to deny. And we went into COVID where the planning board just started meeting on Zoom. And so Now you're looking at 30 squares in front of you and everybody's got orange t-shirts on. So it just drove home the point. And you never know what's swaying, because there's people up there on the board who definitely want it. There's some up there who definitely don't, but there's one or two in there that are on the fence. And this, the seeing that their community is against this, can sway them to your side, if
To the right side.
to the right
To the
side.
correct
I didn't
side.
want to say that, but you're right. It is to the right side.
Okay, public outreach. Okay, once again, we have our core people. They're walking the beat. They're making their point in the community. And I say in this slide, projecting your concerns factually and honestly. We never lied about what the concerns might be with this development, and we always attempted to be fact bound. But I do want to look at the third thing about being honest. Not only with people that you might meet at their doorstep, but perhaps more importantly, if you're before a planning commission, before a board of supervisors, you want to treat these people honestly and with respect, because they're by and large volunteers. They don't want to be badmouthed by a bunch of orange t-shirt wearing meanies. So we always treated them with respect. But as far as this slide is concerned, door-to-door canvassing, I don't know how many doors we knocked on. But after 4 years, we would knock on a door and find people that didn't know anything about the 6 million square foot warehouse that was being proposed right down the street. I don't know where these people were, but we found them. But you had to convince them that the development proposal impacted them. It wasn't just a matter of, okay, it's going to displace bald eagle nests or whatnot. No, this development is going to result in one tractor trailer a minute past your house. And this kind of statement, which was true, got people's attention. All right. Circulating petitions were appropriate. We collected something like 2,000, 2,500 signatures, essentially against the proposal. Once again, sitting at supermarkets, sitting on street corners, going door to door. I don't know necessarily how much their impact the petitions have, because legally they don't carry much weight. But once again, you plop 2,000 or 2,500 signatures in front of a planning commission or a planning board, it drives home the importance.
And just a word about canvassing. We're involved with another Fighting the Warehouse in Phillipsburg, in a poor community, and many of the people are renters and they're Hispanic. So when we go door to door, we were going door to door, and we had a language barrier, so we could hand them an English, like a flyer in English, and it didn't really go very far. We quickly realized that we needed to recruit folks that could have a dialogue that were fluent in Spanish, and we converted our flyer into English on one side and Spanish on the other, and we were able to, and it took a lot longer, because we ended up having conversations more so, because it was good. But so just as an extension of the flyering is you want to be aware of the audience that you're talking to, and be ready to make those adjustments.
Okay.
And one point I wanted to make, you were saying we were basing it all on fact, right? When we were talking to the planning board, treating them with respect and fact. One of the things that I didn't mention is we did in New Jersey, they have the Open Public Records Act. It's the way you get government records. In Pennsylvania, it's right to know, the right to know laws, and they're similar. And so what we did, we had one of the people in the core group, her job primarily was every week to submit a brand new OPRA request. every week, because every week they could be shipped. The developer could be sending in a new traffic study or sending in an application that they just filed a wetland delineation permit to DEP. So every week, so we didn't have to wait for 3 days before the meeting to find this information out. So every week she would submit this and we would have this steady stream of information coming in. Just, it's doing your homework. And it's, again, it's something that should be delegated to somebody. And it's you can do it you can do it in PA the same as you can do in New Jersey. And it could be the state, it could be the township, because sometimes the information that the state gets is a little bit different than what the township gets. And so you want to cover all those bases.
Okay, outreach at public events. We would have our core group, we would have meetings at least once a week. And somebody would mention, the Warren County Fair is coming up in a month. Do we want to have a table there? Well, of course we want to have a table there. So there's one of the setups for the Warren County Fair. And we got a good feeling from these, because never were we charged space for setting up a display. Particularly like the Warren County Fair, I forget what the daily rate was, but they welcomed us there. And the same thing goes, we have a White Township Farmers Market, Washington Borough Street Fair, Hope Township 250th anniversary. We were there. We're always in people's faces, and it's important. Maybe you get a couple of signatures on a petition, but more importantly, it keeps the issue alive. And they go home at a dinner table and say, oh, look at this handout. I mean, is this really true that we're going to get 1,000 trucks a day? Or in this case, it was thousands of trucks a day, 1 truck a minute. So at any rate, public outreach at public events is very important. We also hosted informational meetings. We had, I think, 2 or 3 of these. And once again, Hope Township, which was one of the municipalities that was going to be most affected, welcomed us with open arms. Here, have our community center, have at it. And we, in fact, had 2 informational meetings at the Hope Township Community Center.
And just for me to add, I mean, and if you're part of the core group, I mean, you're living this stuff, you're living this information day in and day out, so you know it. It's like everybody knows this information, but we would talk to people, and they would, because there was a delayed meeting or a canceled meeting around the holiday or something, people would come up to us and say, well, it's already been decided. Hasn't it already been decided? Or did the developer pull out? And even though we're living it and breathing this information, the point is these information meetings are important, even if all you're doing is sharing the current status of what's going on and answering questions. Because if people are going around saying, I don't know what's going on, I think the developer pulled out, they may not show up at the next planning board meeting. But if they've attended one of your public outreach meetings, and it can be Zoom. Zoom's so easy now. It's so easy to get 30 people from your community. Just even if you're just sharing the current status, it's valuable.
I had mentioned earlier that we were surprised to go canvassing and find people who didn't even know about the project. There were maybe 50% of the people that we encountered, oh, that's a done deal. No, it's not a done deal, not if I have my way. That's where, several slides back, the motivational speaker comes in, because we need to convince the people that this is an important project. It's going to impact them, and no, it's not a done deal, and no, they don't have the politicians in their pocket, and we're here to prove otherwise. A couple of the other tools that we use, took out a billboard for a couple of months, and perhaps one of the most effective means of communicating with the public was through the use of a, and I'll emphasize it, private Facebook page. Private being something that you need to be admitted to our group by an administrator, so that we didn't get trolls and whatnot who were out to subvert uh, what we were trying to sell and convey. Um, so I said Facebook, and there was other, being at my age, there are other social media platforms which I have no idea for, and that's why we have Peter here today to go over a few of those.
So thank you guys. I'm just gonna go over these like sort of really quickly because I see a lot of young faces here, so I'm sure like many of you are already familiar with social media. But I've talked to some people, and there are a lot of people who don't have a social media account, and there are varying levels of use with it. So forgive me if I very obvious to you guys. But overall, I think social media is, it's probably one of the most effective and most efficient ways of communicating with the public and with your work and with your members as well, and also just like helping your organization grow. So do I need this or? Oh, okay, for that. Okay, for the mic. Okay, yeah. So as you all know, like social media, it's pretty ubiquitous. It's everywhere. You guys probably have at least one of these apps on your phone. And sort of that's where its power is. It's like it's traveling with you everywhere. And it's free, and I think, but like in this day and age, everyone has it, but like you'd still be surprised like how many small organizations, small businesses, they don't have like a social media presence at all, or even like an online presence. And that's really important because you need like a central location for your members to kind of interact with you. And you can do that without needing to purchase like a website, right? Which adds to your cost. And like for a small organization, or like if it or if you're volunteer run, you don't have a lot of funding, social media is probably, it's like the most efficient way of communicating with the public, right? It's quite literally free. You could grab a phone, record yourself in the span of like 5 or 10 minutes, post it online, and you'd get like thousands and thousands of views, potentially. Doesn't mean you will. And you do that for like the fraction of the cost, a fraction of the effort, fraction of the time, as like some of these other means of like, you don't have to go around town posting flyers because that takes time, that takes energy, and just like printing costs associated with it as well. But yeah, so I mean, there's plenty social media platforms to use. CSFD they have a private Facebook page, which worked for them. But you should be aware of like the different user bases that are associated with each of these platforms, and they all have their own quirks and stuff. So, for example, Blue Sky X, or formerly known as Twitter, they have a very short format, like a little short headline. So that form of communication is, you're not going to be able to convey a lot of information in short posts or anything like that. So it's best used for like announcements and headlines. And so with that kind of medium, you'll see a lot of institutions use it, a lot of agencies who are making announcements, posting notices, and news media outlets. So if you want to reach the press, you'd want to be reaching, using Blue Sky or X or Twitter for that. And another example would be Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok. Those are like short video formats if you're not familiar with them. And that kind of medium, in my opinion, is better suited for if you're trying to educate people or just like raise awareness, because one of the limitations of those platforms is that you can't really ask people to click on anything, so you can't really ask them to do something else afterwards. And so it's good for educating people and just letting them know about the issue. If you want to ask them to like donate afterwards or sign up for membership or take further action, then you'd probably use a different platform. So
If I may interject something, because
sure.
we had a head scratching aspect to our organization, and that was attempting to attract young people. And maybe, Peter, from what you're saying now, we had a shortcoming because we were focused on Facebook, and maybe young people don't utilize Facebook as much as we were. So I just want these people to be, aware of that and be selective about what platform you elect to use. But don't use multiple platforms because you're just going to scatter your uh, effectiveness across various elements. Um, I happen to like Facebook because, again, once you were part of the group, I mean, I could post something incendiary, uh, 1 hour and have 600 and some odd people responding, uh, probably all of them over the age of 60, but, you know, it was effective from that standpoint. But maybe you want to have two platforms. Somehow, what we're talking about doesn't necessarily ring home with the young population. Do they, my own opinion was that we were fighting for their future, not for my future, but yet we had real difficulties in trying to convey that to the younger crowd. So
Yeah, which I mean, so this brings me to my next point. It's uh, there are some guidelines, and like one of the most important things is that you think about your messaging. Um, as you've said, like some of these social media sites, they have a certain macro demographic, but there are definitely tons of like smaller sub communities, smaller groups, um, little niches that are there that you can still tap into. And when you're doing that, you need to fit your message to cater to those groups. Um, and, whether they're just like other local community groups, like they could be neighboring counties or neighboring townships or whatever, those kinds of groups, or like other groups that share similar interests, you know, um, I mean, so that's how you would sort of expand your audience. Um, you want to fit your message to the medium. You want to know your audience and tailor your message to kind of persuade them to care about your issue. And that's a problem because we are sort of in an attention-based economy. 24 news cycle. Everybody's you're sort of competing with millions and millions of other people's stories, and that's really difficult. And it's increasingly a sort of pay-to-play situation where if you want your issue to be out in the forefront of people's minds, you kind of have to like do some advertising on these platforms, and so that costs a little bit of money. Um, but if you're able to actually generate some traction, get people to care, in your posts. Ask them to take an additional step, right? Like if they're really motivated, you post a story that really gets them riled up. It's some kind of news story or something. Give them an outlet to take action. Because they have all this energy and they're just worked up, and I really hate that feeling where you feel a certain way, but then like, what do I do after that? It's like, use an analogy. I don't like to start my car if I'm not going anywhere. So that's a really important thing to do. So I guess, yeah, so my major takeaway, the major takeaway that I want you guys to have is just, be deliberate about your kind of messaging that you're putting out there. And yeah, so I mean, we can go to the next slide if you want to.
Okay.
Is that the next one?
Did all those response from your incendiary emails out? Did they start with what, WTF?
No, but I didn't hesitate personally to post on like Facebook. When was the last time you attended or participated in a public demonstration? Now, knowing quite well that my audience was in their 60s and whatnot, probably harken back to the days of the 1960s. And in a way, a post like that was intended to shame them into taking some action. So, yeah, we got quite a bit of response to posts such as that. This slide, and I want you to notice, this was at the municipal building, White Township Municipal Building. And once again, through Facebook, okay, let's have a public rally next Friday, 3 o'clock. And this is what you would get, all right? But notice, once again, the orange t-shirts. Now, it's, honk for open space, honk for no trucks and whatnot. And we had truckers, and the place was blaring with horns. Don't forget the seniors. It took us a long while. We had along this route that was being affected by this development proposal. We had two senior citizen developments that residents numbered in the hundreds. Unfortunately, they are in general closed communities. So you go down there and you speak with, or you attempt to speak with the management. We don't want anything to do with you. Well, maybe the people want something to do with us. So finally, after maybe about 3 years in, we cracked these open, and we went, because of their participation now, it was like a floodgate of new blood coming into our organization.
Or old blood.
Or old blood, yeah. But, once again, these people were making their own signs. These people were making badges, no warehouses. These people were, once again, we had one of them attending a planning board meeting with a life jacket on, flotation device. I said, what? What's this all about? He says, I don't have an orange shirt. So he comes in with an orange flotation device around his neck. These people really did give us a jolt when we needed it. Our meetings went from perhaps 600 or 60 people attending, all of a sudden 200 were there. And let's be honest about it, it was giving them something to do on a Thursday night or a Friday night, something other than, sitting in front of television. But they thoroughly enjoyed being engaged, in this project.
15 minutes.
Connect with the media real quickly. Newspapers, which are almost now defunct, but television, radio. I have a byline here. They love public relations stories. They like to take the side of the little guy. And that was us. WRNJ out of Hackettstown. I must have appeared there maybe about 4 times for 20-minute sessions. And once again, they welcomed us because I guess we did our salesman pitch on them. They welcomed us because they believed we were right. Attendance at meetings. After we circulated our petitions, after we went door to door, after we got the seniors involved, we started getting a lot of people at these meetings. This is a view of one of the meetings, I'm going to say maybe 2.5, 3 years in. But we blew out the capacity of the meeting room. And I'm sure this is universal from fire code, but they couldn't hold a meeting because we were exceeding the capacity of the room. So that happened several times. And as Fred said, one of the strategies is delay, delay, delay. Here's the developer parading in thousands of dollars worth of experts, and the meeting's canceled because we can't hold the meeting. We're exceeding the capacity of the room. So then they got bigger rooms. And this is perhaps one of the biggest meeting attendances that we had, 230 people. We actually nudged some people to go home because we were on the verge of exceeding the capacity of that particular meeting hall as well. So this type of attendance and this type of activity is what politicians pay attention to. I mean, when you see 600 lawn signs and you hear all of this media attention on the radio and whatnot, it drives home the fact that we're serious and this project is bad for the community. So with that, all of a sudden, the state came across and bought the project out. Now, just to give you, so that you're not with any lofty ideas, this was a 600-acre project that the developer bought before he even got any approvals. Unconditionally paid like $11 million for this project. And the county had approached him to purchase it. He said, "What are you kidding?" At any rate, ultimately, the state of New Jersey came in and delay aside, the state wanted this land. They paid him $28 million. Okay. It was a gorgeous tract, prime farmland, you name it, had every aspect that the state DEP wanted. But the guy looked at it and he says, I'm going to develop this thing. I paid him $11 million. I'm going to go through all of the headache of getting this continual approval. Now, remember, this was 5 years in the making. He hadn't gotten through his presentations yet. There was probably another 3 years worth of hearings. And he said, give me the right price and I'm out of here. And the state did. So I'm just saying to you, depending on your project and whatnot, I doubt that any volunteer organization or group of people is going to be able to buy out a project. But what you can do, as presented in these slides, is make it uncomfortable for other politicians to approve the project. So that's my presentation for you folks.
Good job. Good job. Does anyone have any questions for Tom or Peter or I? Yes.
I just wanted to mention that Penn Future has a workbook that you can download on their website, and it goes through zoning laws. It tells the difference between a variance and a development by right, a zoning board, a planning commission. So it's really helpful if you're trying to delay. Mm-hmm. And congratulations on beating Jandal because he is a tough customer.
He is.
Thank
you. And on the back of this handout, I mentioned, and I put the link in to that Penn Future booklet resource. There's a couple of resources back here. On the back of this is a couple of Tom's our webinars that we gave, and you'll see. And we got a college student to help us do the webinar. This was early in the COVID period, and none of us knew how to really do it. So he set up webinars for us, and it just shows. And again, it shows us none of us are rock stars, and we don't give like this incredibly intense research, but we're sharing information with the community, and it helped out. But yeah, there's that resource is in there. There's also on here too is something, especially with Pennsylvania, is Pennsylvania in your Pennsylvania Constitution you have the Green Amendment in the Constitution that guarantees all Commonwealth residents with clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment. That should be every time you get up and give a presentation. That should be spoken to every time, and we're working on that in New Jersey and many other states. But there's a lot of other resources on the back of there. Yes. Oh, sorry.
The question is the use of private social media like Facebook. Is there a limit to use? Or I can use whatever I want, whatever I want for. Let's say if I work for the government, I use private social media.
Well, when I said private, I'm inferring the fact that we had administrators. And if you wanted to partake in the discussion on that page, you had to fill out. It was a pretty lame, I got to say, a pretty lame questionnaire. Who are you, and are you a communist type of thing? No, it was a pre-screening so that perhaps one of us core people might know you and know that you're not in there to subvert the message that we were trying to do. And it was pretty effective. I think that we only canned maybe 2 or 3 people. So that's what I mean by private. Not everybody could jump on that site and get involved with posting information. But once you were there, yeah, we could throw you out again. But essentially that screening through the administrators was the private aspect that I was referring to.
Did that answer your question?
Yep.